Kyle Fuller, and Charles Leno Jr., along with your hosts, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Morning, everybody. Thanks for coming back. Have you guys had a great weekend or what? Are you the diehards? You've been here for all of them, haven't you? I see a lot of familiar faces here in the front row. Good to have you back here on Sunday at this great event. I was just telling Charles Leno here, this has been, for me and Tom, I think I speak for Tom, this has been one of the most incredible professional experiences of my career this weekend, honestly. It's been great conversation and feeding off your energy as well.
I think for us, for everybody, for the old players, the new players, it's been a great learning experience. Because I think, yeah, you understand there's 100 years in existence of the franchise, but until you're a young guy and you hear how passionate a guy like Ed O'Bradovich was yesterday, and how much it means for him to sit up here on the stage with, you know, Akeem Hicks and Hall of Famers, Dan Hampton and Tommy Harris and Chris Zorich, it's just an incredible experience for all of us. And I know we talk a lot about the scrapbook that was put together by Dan Pompei and Don Pearson. You got to read it, because as much as you think you know about the Bears, as much as you invested in all the games on both TV and in person, it's an opportunity. It's a book like no other. And so I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about the Bears and cheer louder when this season comes.
And new chapters being written by gentlemen like this, the Pro Bowlers. Kyle Fuller and Charles Leno Jr. I'm going to start with Kyle. How about opening night? Now, was your adrenaline pumping? I mean, you come out in that sharp-looking jersey, love it, and the whole night was just, there was so much great conversation going on in that back room. It was just a great moment for all generations. How did you feel about that night?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, we were all looking forward to it. I feel like, you know, over the last couple of weeks, you've been hearing about it. A lot of people, you know, just going around town on the golf course, things like that. People are talking about the 100-year celebration. And then just to get here and see all the older guys and some of the older guys you played with a couple years ago, you know, it was amazing. It's just good to be around them.
And you know what, Charles? Not many franchises in sports can pull something like this off, because it's 100 years. It's just this unbelievable journey through professional sports and the building of something from the ground up that this franchise has been able to do, and that you've been a big part of now here in the last many years. Did you feel that on Friday night?
Yeah, absolutely. Just being back there with all those guys, like going all the way from the beginning to the end, you see just like greatness from all levels. And it was just amazing. You can feel the buzz, you can feel the vibe in there. There was a lot of energy. Guys just feeding ideas and just, you know, telling stories from back in the day. That was like the coolest thing, just listening to stories from older players and, you know, how the game has changed. That was just awesome.
I have a question for both you guys about last year. You know, when you embark on the journey of professional football, it's a really rewarding opportunity, but there's not a lot of fun because there's so much competitiveness, there's so much work, and it's every single day, whether you're at practice being evaluated or the results of your efforts in the game. So both of you guys, is last year the first year you've actually had fun? Because what I'm saying is you get drafted, you're in the first round, you go through the contract scenario that you went through, then you get rewarded because of the effort, and then all of a sudden, I've never seen a season of more fun in my life. Charles, you get drafted later, all of a sudden you become the left tackle, you haven't missed a snap, you get rewarded with the contract. You, for God's sakes, you get engaged on the field after a game.
Thank you. That was great. That was awesome.
For both of you guys, can you talk about the fun of last year for all of us?
Yeah, I would definitely say last year was the most fun I've had since I've been here. You know, a lot of that has to do with winning, but I think just the team that we had, you know, I think the way we gelled together, you know, I think that's what, you know, I think that's what really separated, you know, last year, you know, to the others since I've been here.
Yeah, I mean, last year was amazing. I was just telling Kyle a few minutes ago before he came on stage, like, we came in the draft together, like first round, seventh round in 2014, and we went through a rough time. And we finally saw what it felt like to win and perform at a high level. So it was just fun, and we were just like, we don't want this to stop. We want this to keep going. We want to keep getting better. Like, we're not stopping right here.
Well, just look at that photo right there. I mean, that's what it's all about right there, with each other. That family, that tight family that you guys put together. As you look at that picture, both of you guys, what goes through your head?
Go ahead.
I think for me, just a lot of hard work, you know, to be able to have moments like that. You know, everybody, all the guys doing it together, which makes it even more special. And just to be able to enjoy it, you know, as a group.
Same exact thing. Everybody looks at that picture. You can see all this fun, and don't get me wrong, that's great. But behind that is a lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of guys, you know, pushing themselves to the maximum limit, and that's what happens when you do that.
You know, it's kind of funny. You talked about Kyle being the first rounder the same year that you were drafted, Charles. In the year I was drafted, Willie Gault and Jimbo Covert were the first rounders. And Willie didn't even know that he and I played in the Hula Bowl together, just because you don't cross paths that much. You're separated in time as soon as you get to the locker room. As soon as you get drafted, you're in two different meeting areas. Your lockers aren't near each other. How long was it before you and Kyle, in your rookie year, had conversations with each other? Did you become immediately close, or were you separated in the football existence that I talk about?
No, we had to spend time together because Tony Medlin put us in a basement. That's what he does to the rookies. He just throws us in the basement, and you force the rookies to talk to each other. So we had to talk early, but yeah, but right after that, Kyle goes to defensive room, I go to offensive room, and it's kind of like, hey, what's up, how you doing? And it's right on by, and you're just trying to figure out how to be an NFL player as a rookie. So it's just really cool, like seeing our journey, like, you know, just go away and then come right back together, go away and come right back together. It's just intertwined.
Yeah, I think I remember when we first got here, you didn't meet everyone until to the first day you come in and you have all these things for the rookies. But like Leno said, the rookie locker room was separate, so you know we were all, you know, felt like we were all just together in there. I remember, you know, days when we'll leave practice and we're all just new to it, just go down there and just, you know, just talk about how crazy it is, and you know, just that we're actually where we are. But
do you think it's a good idea? I mean, Tony's done this for a long time. Yes, and so Tony Medlin's Bears equipment manager for decades, and it's a small room. I mean, you feel totally isolated, and it's almost like you have to, you know, climb that ladder to get into the big locker room. But do you think it's a good idea for those rookies to bond and get to know each other to then transition into the big guys' room?
for
Yeah,
sure.
I definitely think so.
Yeah.
You
What are the
agree?
benefits?
One thing I liked about going down to the rookie locker room in old part of the facility was you felt like a lot of the guys in the past had done that. So, you know, it's like a tradition. But then just so that you can kind of, you know, separate yourself and, you know, you all take it in together. And, I mean, it'd be good to kind of learn some things from the older guys, but also something where, you know, you have to work and, you know, to get that privilege to be around those guys and, you know, something to look forward to.
I agree. That's the biggest benefit. Like, it's like a stepping stone. Like, you start here and you have to work your way up. And that's what I agree. Like, I think that was a great privilege. I think that's an awesome thing to do because you are a rookie. You haven't made it yet. You have to earn your stripes before you get up.
You know, just to give a little bit further of an explanation, so now in the modern day Hallis Hall, the rookies are literally in a basement, and there's a small room, and they have these metal lockers, and it's you know, built for 10 guys, but there's 30 in there. So you're sweaty, you're hot, you're getting taped, and then you come out this basement door, up this outside staircase, and then you start seeing what the field and what the practice situation's like. And then eventually through the course of time, if you do earn a spot on the roster, and then you move your locker up into where all the big guys are. Now you're in a spacious locker room, you have your own space, and it's really intimidating. It's intimidating when you come up that staircase, and then it's intimidating the first time you open that locker room door and you kind of find your place, and you know, you're just kind of looking out of the side of your eyes, not making eye contact with anybody. So that whole transition is a great part of your career.
Yeah, that's kind of funny and then once you get like a weekend, all the rookies will feel like they've kind of, you know, they feel more comfortable and they get to walking around. And if you walk into the locker room, it's kind of like if a coach walks into the locker room and people look at you like, what you doing here? Like, you don't belong in here. So if you sneak in there, they'll look at you a little crazy, but you know, they're all cool about it. And then, you know, that's just, you know, something to look forward to.
Are you guys an early arrival for the day, or are you guys, you know, like me, I was so nervous about ever being late. If I got a flat tire, got hit by a train, got in a wreck, I would still get there on time because I showed up
Hit
so
by
early.
a train, really, Tom?
Well, I'm just, you know, painting the worst case scenario.
I tell you what, ladies and gentlemen, he's still like that today, believe
I
me.
am. Hey, listen, when you grow up the youngest in the family of 5, show up in time, or, you know, get ready to eat or else you get nothing. You guys, what is your daily habits? Are you early arrivals or are you on-time guys?
Yeah, I'm an early arrival guy. I like to get in there early, you know, do some type of stretching, warming up, do a lift, get breakfast early. I don't know. I just like to get there a little earlier than most.
I think I'm an early to just enough in
He
time
late.
guy.
He's late.
Like,
just don't. You late.
I get in, you know, early. I have to get in early enough, you know, to eat breakfast and stuff, and just do what I have to do in the morning. But I'm a stay late guy, you know. I definitely stay a little bit late. I just after practice, I literally sit in my locker and just stare and just, you know, just get myself together after practice of the long day, and, you know, get in the tubs, things like that.
I've always observed that, obviously, about Kyle in the locker room when the media kids. You sit there and you take it all in a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking that you're a thinker. You're just digesting the day, digesting what's going on, processing, and getting yourself into a certain place. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's definitely it. Whether it be a good day, bad day of practice, something I want to do better, or just you know, just kind of, you know, your body and your mind just tired just from working, just thinking all day, and you just sit back and you just free your mind and you just relax. You know, a lot of times also, you know, you just look around and, you know, realize where you're at, and, you know, that you worked your whole life for this to be here. So you know, you get some moments there where you can just take that all in. But that's definitely something I enjoy. I feel like that's my personality a little bit, but yeah.
Kyle, you come from a football family. You have brothers that play in the NFL. Do you guys have similarities in your preparation and is it something that, like, they kind of gave you the message how to go about your business?
Yeah, I think I compared a lot. I'm a little bit. My youngest brother Kendall, you know, he's the same position, you know, similar, you know, not too far from me. We played together in college, and we all went to the same school, Virginia Tech. So we've kind of all in the same household. So we kind of all grew up, you know, doing the same things, knowing the same things. So I feel like we approach the game the same way. You know, I can kind of, you know, I could probably tell you what he's doing during the week. We'll probably have the same thought progress on how we're doing things and, you know, what we're doing. So I definitely think we're very similar, and it's helped us.
All right, the reason that everybody had fun is you won, obviously, right? You guys put in the good work. But your head coach, Matt Nagy, he gave you the platform to have some fun.
Yeah.
When you see this man and you see him walk in the room for the first time at your team meeting in 2018, and we've all discussed this before, something clicked with you and your head coach as a team, a collective team. What was it? What started the process? And how that trust developed immediately with you guys to grow as you did as a football team. Charles?
You said when he first walked in, right? It was just his energy. It was different. It was contagious. You can tell he was passionate. He wanted to win, and he instilled some things in us that, you know, we still have to this day, like, be you. And I know Kyle himself, I'm myself. He said, don't shy away. Don't try to be nobody else. Just be who you are, and that's good enough. And be the best that you possibly can be. And that energy just, you know, was contagious. It fed throughout the whole locker room, and guys just bought in after that.
I just think of, you know, how comfortable he was in that situation that he was in, you know, just coming in as a first-year head coach. Like Leno said, he was passionate and, you know, would do anything, you know, to be successful. And I think that's what makes him a great coach. And, you know, he just, you know, like Leno said, and some of the things we used to go by last year, just being yourself. I think he was totally himself. You know, he didn't try to do more or less. And, you know, he had those attributes that, you know, could bring a team together and get guys to work well. I think so far he's off to a good start.
You know what's neat about Matt is Matt has significant playing experience, both in the Arena League and college football. So if he's talking to a defensive back, he's a quarterback and he knows your responsibility. If he's talking to an offensive lineman, he knows your responsibilities and how important it is. It's got to be nice to, you know, Harry Heastan, he's your offensive line coach, and your defensive back can help you out the most. But it's neat to have a head coach that's so relatable to both of your skills and how important they are. When he gets up there and talks to you, the message has got to be clear from him.
Yeah, I think that's one thing. I think him being, you know, a quarterback and having played, I think that's a connection that he has with the players. And it's funny too, because like even when I look at this picture, when I see him, you know, he always seems like he has something going on in his head, and you never know. I feel like I'm the same way a little bit, so I kind of see it, and I'm always just looking at him like, you know, I wonder what he's over there thinking, because he's thinking about something. But yeah, I think he just has a connection. Like he can talk to me what I see. You know, me being a defensive back, him being a quarterback, so that's good. You know, even I could probably learn a couple things from him as well.
What did you guys learn from the first loss to Green Bay opening night from Matt and how it served you the rest of the season?
Yeah, I remember that like it was yesterday. It's 1 of 20, he told us. That's just one game. And we had a long season, and I don't know, like, in that locker room, we know we had something, and it got taken away, but he reminded us, like, keep that feeling inside, because we're gonna need that for later. And when he told us it was one loss and there's only one game, and just focus on the next one, don't worry about it, but always just remember it. It stuck true to all the guys in the locker room, and we remembered it when we went back on December 16th. So it was a really good reminder.
I think at that moment I really saw as competitive, you know, how much he really wanted to win, but at the same time understanding, you know, the type of game that it was, and, you know, where we were going, you know, by what we did that game, even though we lost. So, and I think at the same time, just, you know, how composed he was. You know, he was mad, and, you know, of course everybody wanted to win, but, you know, he was just, you know, just himself, getting guys, you know, to keep on doing what they've been doing, and, you know, that things would turn around, and he was pretty confident in that.
In the short period of time that you guys have been in, you guys are still young guys. You've gone through two different systems now. Kyle, you came out that San Francisco game, man. You got 2 interceptions. We're going, oh my God, this guy's going to have 20 interceptions in this system. But then things change for you, and for both of you guys, do the systems that you're in now, do they benefit your skills, or is it just you guys are the right fit for the systems that were brought in?
I think it's all football, so it definitely changes a little bit, but for the most part, it's the same. I think, and it's funny. I've been talking to someone recently about it, just how I think back to my first and second year, and I'm like, I wish I knew what I knew now then, or, you know, I just wish I had it as figured out as I feel, as much as I know now. I wish I knew it then, because, you know, things would have, you know, you never know how
Is
how
it
things could.
knowing what you know now back then, that like the receiver routes, the type of personnel you're playing against, and
Yeah.
you know, you were inexperienced at the time,
Right.
so some of it is a guessing game.
Yeah, stuff like that, just on the field, just off the field, just things to do, you know, throughout the week, just everything, on the field and off the field. You know, just your mindset and how you approach things, how you look at things. I think, you know, a lot of that has to do with, you know, just how guys are as players, you know, when they're rookies, and, you know, we're 5 years in. But I mean, I think we've had it's all football. We've had some great coaches, so, you know, we've been able to, you know, just grow, you know, each year, and that's my goal. I think that's a lot of the players' goals on the team.
Charles, for you, it's significant system change.
Yeah. It comes down to me, I think, it's how you approach the game. It's how you do the day-to-day throughout the week, because every week's the same, but it's not. It's the same as in we have practice on these days, we have walkthroughs at this time, but every team is completely different. So if you keep the same regimen and same routine, it can make it better for you and make it, I would say, not easier, but it'll make it more, you know, you can get through the process a little bit better, you know. And I think that was the biggest thing. Like when we were younger, we're just like walking around like chickens with our head cut off. Like, where do we go next? What are we supposed to do? How do we get through this? And now that we're older in the game, it's easy to get into that routine because you know what you want to do. You know how to prepare. You know how to study. You know how to watch film. You know how to lift. All these different things.
Well, these two guys, and I can say this with a lot of conviction, these are two guys that I have great respect for, and I know you do as fans of guys who committed and grew and handled adversity to get where they are today, Pro Bowlers in the National Football League. Let's see some of their highlights this year. This takeaway defense was something else. Number 1 in the league in scoring defense. And the ball was coming out, Kyle Fuller. Break down some of this stuff with your teammates because the defense was hungry.
Yeah, I think that was definitely our mentality this year. You know, just a lot of focus on, you know, not only just the ball, but just being in position and everybody, all 11 guys on the defense doing their job right. And when that happens, you know, things like this will happen. You know, a lot of work, a lot of time during the week on, you know, studying the offense, you know, to help us get in position, and guys just, you know, wanting to do everything to help the team win. Like when you see those guys, you know, stripping the ball from players, they know that's going to help us win, so they're going to do everything they can to, I don't know, get the ball.
You know how fun that is, watching that stuff, man?
Even for you, right?
Oh, my goodness. My coach, Harry's, like, trying to talk to me. He's like, Charles, you need to sit down. I'm like, no, coach, I got to watch this. You know what I mean? Like, It was so fun looking at these guys out here. It was amazing.
And it's funny because you can tell how much fun we're having, like, in the game settings, like with the celebration stuff, especially at home. But you can tell, like, with the celebrations, you can see the fans in the background. You know, it's amazing. Like, I think this was the first year, not only, like, was it the most fun, but I think this year we really saw, you know, we saw it for the first time, you know, really, because we were winning, just how, you know, electric, you know, Soldier Field can get.
Here, Kyle, this one. Are you getting your shoe shine?
Yeah, I was getting my shoe shine.
So who came up with that?
I think Eddie did. I think Eddie did. It was funny because we saw the TV copy, and we were like, they didn't get it. But I think it was they had a video of it. But yeah, I was getting my shoe shine. We had a couple.
Reading the paper, too.
Reading the paper, yeah. I thought that was pretty cool. That was one of the first couple that we had. But
in your life, have you ever got your shoe shined at, like, one of the stands?
I don't think so, no. I've gone to a Nordstrom and, you know, may have needed something done to my shoes and thought about it, but I don't think I've ever, you know, sat in the stand. I think I've used some of the tools to maybe.
Well, Charles, you know, we've seen you split out as a wide receiver and the different types of offensive formations. Eventually, I say that you're going to get your hands on a ball and possibly get a touchdown. Is there any design, is there any thought about the type of celebration you could have? Would you have to include all your other offensive linemen?
Every single offensive lineman will be included, absolutely.
See, they got this thing in the works already, don't you?
Where's the camp? Nagy, please, just one time. One time, please. I'm talking to you, man.
Talking to the camera.
Well, hey, this man was a heck of a basketball player back in the day, so we know he's got some good feet and some good hands. Here's some of these trick plays in 2018. They were a great joy to watch. It kept us on our toes in the booth as well. You never knew what was coming next.
Man, it was absolutely, even in the meeting rooms, like when we're installing these plays, it's like, all right, every week it's like, what's next? Who's gonna get a pass? Who's gonna get a catch? Who's gonna get a run? What kind of funky play is going to be thrown in today? And we always come up with some funny names for stuff too. And that was the first play of the season. I remember that was the T formation. George Hallis,
Papa Bear
Papa
left.
Bear. Yeah, that started off the season last year, so it was really cool.
No, it was kind of fun yesterday up on stage having the big man Akeem Hicks up here with William Perry to have the because we were in meetings the first time that all of a sudden Coach Ditka calls William and he comes waddling the length of the field to short yardage goal line period of the offense, and he goes, William, you're gonna be in the backfield, and all of a sudden it just sparked practice. So I think these are the things that really spark practice. In the middle of seasons that kind of wear on, it's really fun for everybody.
There's Big Brad Sowell, now a tight end. Maybe because of that play right there, right, fellas?
He's athletic, so I could see it. He could drop a little bit of weight. He won't be too bad. I think he'd be good for us.
I mean, don't you love the idea, though, that So when you come into the league, or even when you were playing in high school and college, you just want to be, especially the NFL, you want to be put in a position to succeed. They evaluate your traits, your skill sets, and you hope that you're in a situation where they recognize exactly what you're going to be really good at. And that's really all you ask for as a player. Matt Nagy has such an open mind to get what every ounce of skill out of each individual on that team that he in no way puts somebody in a box and says that's all you can do. As players, do you respect, appreciate that, and does that allow this team to grow in a different way because of it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I think so. I think another good thing that he does is, not trying to do too much. He just, like I said, not only being you, but, he doesn't try to, I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I guess it's pretty simple. Get anyone to do something that, that's not good for them or will bring the best out of them. And I feel like that's a good trait to have as a head coach, as a coach, period. Just to, know the guys that you have and let them, go out, trust in them and let them go out there and do what they know how to do.
Yeah, it's really like, I'm gonna give you these tools and you go out there and work it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna force too much stuff on you. We're gonna simplify it as much as possible. Some weeks we may have a long install. Some weeks we may only have a very short install. And we're gonna be like, this is how we're gonna attack it. We're gonna move fast and we're gonna be efficient. And it depends every week in the offensive room. So I think he does a really good job of that. And that's what it's all about. You got to be able to adapt and have your team adapt. And he does
You can tell that he trusts a lot of guys on the team. Good player, bad play. He believes in you. He knows that you'll come back and make a good play. So that's good. That's good to know.
It's hard to put a finger on exactly what game clicked for you guys that the belief was truly like, okay, we're going places. I'm going to show the Rams game here because I thought that was a total domination. Would you guys agree that this one may have been it? You guys tore them up.
I agree. If not the first one, this was definitely one. I feel like at this point in the season, we were, seeing that we would, I think, be in the playoffs for, the first time in a little while. And, I know as a defense approaching this game, like I said, since the first game, I feel like we have been growing, showing what we could do. And I remember coming in this game, the Rams were like the top offense, and we were like we weren't tripping, we didn't care. We knew, that we'd be able to stop them, and it felt really good to really go out there and hold them. I think to 6 points or something.
Yeah.
So that was amazing, and that was that atmosphere of the game. I feel like it was a playoff like, just to get us ready. That one, and also Minnesota on the road. But I think I think looking forward. I think just like we could say these games, is when it started clicking. I think last year, because we'll be able to say, that's when it started clicking for us.
Todd Gurley, 11 carries, 28 yards, lowest output of the season. Jared Goff, a 19-1 quarterback rating in that game, swiped 4 times, held the Rams to 215 yards, and the offense did its job as well. And a lot of good times at Soldier Field on that one.
You think about both of your positions leading up to this game. Because of the pre-hype, it was Jared Goff and how well he's thrown the ball. Aaron Donald, that's all we heard about. This guy's going to be MVP for the next 10 years. It's kind of neat and gratifying to have that pressure on both of your positions and both have such a successful outing against them. When I was playing and we played against Reggie White, he would keep you up for a week because you were so intimidated by his greatness. But you guys kind of overcame both of those aspects. And Charles, how was it that week in preparation when Aaron Donald was getting so much hype?
Oh, it was all focus. Like he said it earlier, we prepared for that game like it was a playoff game, and not like we don't others, but we knew we had to. This was the team to beat at that time. And we felt like, no, we're the team to beat at that time. So you're coming to our house. We want to protect Soldier Field, and we want to show you what we got. And that's what it was.
Kyle, when a team comes in with the hype, I know it's twofold, receiver, quarterback, but does it go quarterback first, then to receivers? Or is it, hey, D-line, we need some pressure to help us out?
Ask the question again.
So when you get ready to play the Rams and the quarterback's come in and he's got all these impressive stats leading up to it, is your focus from quarterback to receivers, or is it from receiver to quarterback?
To be honest, it's really on the offense itself. I feel like those guys are just, those are the guys, throwing and catching the ball. But I think it's more so, and it starts off with us. That's what, Nagy always preaches. But I think it just starts off with our 11 being in the position, not worrying about them. And then, but in general, it's really the offense itself. Not the quarterback. The quarterback's just throwing the ball, the receiver's just catching it, running the route. That's in the offense. So, to understand that and kind of, be prepared for what they're going to do on offense, I think that's really, that's more the focus.
Charles Leno, your group last year, Pro Football Focus is an analyst website that does a lot of great work, and a lot of NFL teams do use it for reference and so forth. But second best pass blocking efficiency offensive line of the National Football League in 2018. Great job. And you're all back together, maybe in different spots. How critical is that continuity for you, and how good do you feel about it moving forward?
Yeah, and I feel great moving forward. Like the group of guys we have, we're all tight, we're focused, we go to work every day extremely hard, and I don't know, it's just really cool being with the same group of guys because continuity is big. When you have moving parts, it's hard to for communication and just getting fits, because as an offensive lineman, you got to work together with somebody every single play. Even though I might be on an island and blocking somebody by myself, I have to work with everybody on the line. All 5 of us work together. So with that continuity, it's great. We can call out things. We can see things well before it happens, and it's just good.
Charles, when Khalil Mack came aboard, so you're going against Aaron Lynch and you're going against Leonard Floyd and all the other different outside rushers they have, Akeem and the whole crew. All of a sudden now you're practicing against him. Khalil practices at a high level, whether you're doing one-on-ones or teamwork. Did he increase your practice concentration because he's the type of rusher that we all read about? I never get to play against, but I've had experiences against guys like Lawrence Taylor. How is that on a practice atmosphere to help you become a better offensive tackle?
Oh, definitely. It's like iron sharpens iron, and he's like the iron of irons. It's really good going against him at practice because he knows. He's like, I don't know how to explain it, but he has every single tool, but he also puts the work in to get better. So you have to be on your A game every single day, and I just have to focus on me and my technique just to stay in front of him and get blocks against him.
Hey, Kyle, so when you know the defense front to back, so now you know that there's an aggressive rush on that side by Khalil and whoever he's working with. Does that change any thinking process about the tightness that maybe you want to coverage, or how you will think the quarterback's going to see a little pressure in his face a little quicker?
Not too much. It can a little bit in certain situations or certain coverages, but I think the biggest difference is, you see a guy like, Khalil, great player, great guy, and, going to practice every day, working hard, it's kind of contagious, makes you want to, work on some of the little things that make you better. But, when you have guys like that up front, you just know that, the more you work and the more you're in position, because of what they're doing up front, there's going to be, your room for error can get a little bit bigger, or more like, the ball may be in a position, to be intercepted more often or something like that, or the ball may not be thrown. So, just knowing that, makes you feel comfortable, and, I think that just shows why, having all those guys, doing their job and at a high level, makes it better.
Kyle tied for first in the NFL last year, 7 interceptions. One of only a few players in the league who played at least 100 or more man-covered snaps and did not miss a tackle. And that's significant because at the cornerback, look at him smiling. The cornerback position in the NFL, you got to tackle.
Yeah.
You got to make plays on the ball. You got to cover, but you got to tackle. And that element of your game you brought here.
Yeah, I enjoyed tackling. I didn't know that stat. I think they gave me a couple, but I appreciate it. Yeah, I was never. I think from a young age, I kind of, okay, I like to tackle. I want to do it. So, it just makes you better, makes the team better. As hard as it is, like you said, those open field tackles, those receivers, they're shifty these days, big, strong, fast. So, it's definitely something that you have to.
We only have 2.5 minutes to go, so we're going to whip through this real quick.
Yeah.
Big Tom, good times go quickly,
Yes.
right? But
Well,
real
I'll
quick.
go ahead. All those interceptions you got. Listen, I've given up a sack, and I have sacks in my mind that I can still think about. 3-step drop sack I gave up on Monday Night Football against the Broncos.
Yep.
Is there any bobbled interceptions that you're going, oh my God, this will haunt me for a couple years?
No, honestly, I think back to how lucky I got to get the interception on Tom Brady. Not too many. It'll be like getting an interception on Peyton Manning, where you're like, okay, you appreciate that one, just from the quarterback that they are. But that's really it.
Sneak peek preview here. 2019 about to unfold. A great schedule. You got a new defensive coordinator. Tell us how that's going with Chuck Pagano, what the fans could look forward to. And then
Yeah.
Charles, tell us what's going on with you guys on the offense.
Yeah, it's going well. Chuck Pagano is a great guy, great coach. He's going to come in. We have the same guys on defense, so he's not going to change it up too much. It's, a lot of guys are still doing the same stuff. A little bit of new terminology, but things are still going well. They haven't changed a bit. I think that speaks to Coach Pagano and Coach Nagy. Just doing a good job of keeping things the way they are.
Yeah, for the offense, it's less installed now because we already know the plays. So it's basically focusing in on what we need to do, our techniques, how we can get better, look at some things that we didn't do well, and just make that better for next year.
Chasing great so we can see great celebrations in the locker room from Club Dub like this. What a good time it was in 2018. Let's keep it rolling, right, folks? Did that grow as well? The confidence to just let yourself free?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you can see just if you watch the videos, they get more and more. It's like more people. We all coming together more. It starts getting more fun. You see more personalities come out. It's really cool.
Anybody?
I don't ever think I've seen Fuller in this video.
Yeah. I'm in
Are
there.
you in there?
I'm enjoying it, but I'm
He
not in there
he
dancing.
enjoyed it, but he's not
It may be
dancing.
one or two where I'm making a quick appearance, but that's about it. It was a lot of fun. You just appreciate it. All the hard work, and each week as the season went on,
You
could
see
tell.
anybody dance that shouldn't dance?
Yeah, a couple coaches get in there, but it's all fun.
Well, these guys right here appreciate where they've come from because they're just a handful of guys that have been here a while from previous administrations, and guys like Sherrick McManus and Pat O'Donnell and Charles Leno Jr. and Kyle Fuller. So you guys appreciate the journey more than most. It was some tough times, and now you're starting to thrive, and the best is yet to come, I'd imagine.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Charles Leno Jr., Kyle Fuller. Thank you so much. 2019 Bears, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Just want to give you guys a heads up on another roundtable going to start at 10:05. It's called Building the Future. It's with the Bears Pro Personnel Department, Scouting Department, Champ Kelly, Josh Lucas, and
Sport, Virginia Hallis McCaskey. Joined by George H. McCaskey, NFL Hall of Fame sports writers Don Pearson and Dan Pompei, and your hosts, Jeff Joniak and Tom Thayer.
Good morning, everybody, again, and welcome to a very special scrapbook memory. And we've been looking forward to this one for quite a while. A lot of great Bears history captured in the book that these two outstanding journalists have put together. Dan Pompei, one of my dear friends, and Don Pearson, a man I respect from the moment I got in this business. And all because of George Halas and this family that has created quite the legacy over 100 years. The chairman of the board, George McCaskey, everybody.
Good morning. I asked Jeff and Tom for a few minutes just to tell you how much we appreciate all of the support and enthusiasm of these great Bears fans. Friday night, it was unbelievable at opening ceremonies. All day Saturday, the police told us that the line to get in was all the way down to Lawrence Avenue on River Road. Everyone has been so excited and polite and welcoming. We're just so grateful, so humbled by the support that you give to your Bears, and we're very, very appreciative of it. And I also want to thank our terrific staff for putting on this event, and our players, current and former, for participating as much as they have. And finally, and I'll shut up for a while, I want to compliment Tom and Jeff for the great job they have done all weekend. Fantastic research, great questions, and you're eliciting some great responses from your panelists, and I hope that is true of this next panel right now.
Well, George, are those the 1936 socks you're wearing? I got to go there. They're not regulation height for an NFL game, however.
Yeah, so everybody's seen our new classic uniform from 1936. And of course, we had to get the approval of the owner of the team to put this project into fruition. And I showed Mom the artist's rendering, and the first thing out of her mouth, and this is a quote, reporters, "Well, those socks don't turn me on."
I agree.
And I said, "Mom, the socks are the best part."
But how do you like that uniform? Is it sharp or what, Virginia? Isn't it amazing?
Well, as usual, George has taken all the things that I was going to say. But that is a quote. And I thank you, Tom, for agreeing with me.
Do you remember that uniform? It's a throwback from 1936, correct?
That's what they say, yes.
Right.
I was in first or second year of high school at that point, and I wasn't really paying that much attention to the uniforms. I was more interested in the players who were wearing them.
Your response.
Talk about eliciting great responses. Thank you.
You know, that is such a great response because, Mrs. McCaskey, you've been a daughter, a sister, a mother to the generations of players throughout the history of the Bears. Was there any one time in your life that was more unique to the other, or was it just part of the growth process of your life through the NFL?
These days here in the Rosemont Center for the Centennial celebration, I'm still trying to find words for what they've meant to me, and I hope to all of you. It has made me even more grateful for what my life has been and the position that I'm in. There are so many privileges and perks and blessings. I just can't believe that I'm here and I'm enjoying life at my age the way I am.
So before we get to Don and Dan about this and their time with Mrs. McCaskey, Virginia, it all started because of your mom, honestly, collecting scrapbooks. Explain what that was like for her, why she did it, and how that just carried on through the generations.
My mother and dad were married in February of 1922. But before that, she and my dad had known each other since their days in different high schools in the city of Chicago. And when the Bears started in Wrigley Field, it was a labor of love for my mother to save whatever minimum coverage Dad was able to obtain in the Chicago papers. And over the years in our family, it has grown until now we have this outstanding book, which they lovingly called the scrapbook. And it's just a beautiful thing. I hope everybody eventually will be able to get a copy. And I can warn you, it's a very heavy book. It's not something you can carry around under your arm, but it is worth every bit of it. And I did have a copy for a weekend to look over, and then I had to sign it and return it. So I'm waiting for my own copy. And there was just, I don't know how you got all your sources, but it was wonderful. And there's just one story that was new to me, and that was the one about Bronco Nagurski. After he retired, he bought a gas station, not as an investment, but for his own employment. And he always had a lot of repeat business, because when Bronco put on the gas cap on your gas tank, it stayed on until Bronco took it off. Love it.
So Dan and Don are Dick McCann Hall of Fame writers in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and deserving indeed. Don covered the team for a very long time, a presence at Halas Hall, the old Halas Hall, and Dan Pompei, we grew up in the business together around the same time, and all about football, so they have great perspective, outstanding writers that capture moments. How did you guys capture 100 years of moments with 15 hours of conversation with Mrs. McCaskey?
Well, I think everybody here can see what a privilege it was for us to be able to sit down with Mrs. McCaskey for as long as we did. And she certainly was our primary source, and has been around almost as long as the Bears herself, and I don't think she's forgotten anything about anything she ever knew about them. And so it was just great to be able to sit down with her and listen to her stories and respond to our questions. And one of the things that was interesting for us in writing the book was that it was such a parallel to the National Football League history. The Bears' history is the National Football League history. So I would say, at the risk of sounding like a salesperson as well as an author, that if you're a Bear fan or you know a Bear fan, you have to have this book, but I would even extend it. If you're an NFL fan, I think you have to have this book because it really gives you some insight on the whole history of the National Football League. And it was a privilege to work on it and to do research. And I kid George, I think he asked me to do it because, like his mother, I've been around for most of those 100 years as well. And I do remember watching the Bears for the last, watching him very closely for over 60 years. So I felt that I knew a little bit about it, but there was a lot in the early years that I had to remind myself of, and it was really a pleasure to research and to go back over the old clips and the scrapbooks. And you know, Virginia's right. They saved those early scrapbooks because in the beginning, her father had to pay, can you imagine this? He had to pay sports writers to write about the Bears. How about that, Dan? That doesn't happen anymore. So it was really a pleasure to do it.
Thank God those days are in the deep, distant past.
A great honor, as Don said, to be chosen for this project by the Bears, and also great honor to work with Don, who is one of my heroes in the business. And what a privilege to interview Mrs. McCaskey for. We spent more than 15 hours with her. I don't know if she signed up for that initially, but we eked it out of her a little at a time, and she was so gracious with her time and her stories and her memory. A lot of people don't know she was actually on the Red Grange tour. So I don't think there's anyone alive who has seen as much of the history of pro football as Mrs. McCaskey has. And her recall of it is tremendous. And, you know, for many years, she was reticent, I think I would say, to talk publicly very much. She kind of liked to stay in the background. But it's been wonderful to see her come out and share some of her stories in recent years.
So, what was the starting point? Like, I know we talk about the Bears in the 1920s. What was your initial idea that you said, okay, this is going to be the opening chapter, this is going to be the forward of the book? What was the initial idea?
I think that's a good question because the easy way to do a book like this would be chronological. But I think also, with all due respect, it might be boring for some people to read it from beginning to end. And so what we did was separate it into 5 different sections, 5 categories, and they are ownership, which would include management and coaching, and then the players, the great players and the plays, and the championships would be a 3rd area, the innovations that they've had, and the rivalries. And the reason we did this, you could do the history on any team in the National Football League and divide it into those 5 sections. But in this case, the Bears were unique in every single section. No team in the National Football League has ownership like the Bears had, with George Halas founding the league, founding the team, and his family still being involved in ownership. No team has as many Hall of Fame players as the Bears. Championships, they have 9 championships, and there is, I heard there's a team that has more than that, but we won't mention that. But
we're working on that. We're working on that.
No team in the National Football League has ever won a championship game 73-0, and we make the case that the 1985 season is the most memorable season in NFL history. We made that case. So that's unique. And then as far as the innovations are concerned, there's no other team, there's no other thing in sport like the Grange Tour, which really put pro football on the map. As well as another innovation would be the T formation with the man in motion, which is still the basic T formation. So as far as innovations are, there's no other team that can compare to the Bears. And then the rivalries speak for themselves. There's no other team in the National Football League which have the rivalries that the Bears have. starting, of course, with the team up north. So that's the reason we put the book into that kind of format, and I think it works pretty well because there's a little bit of overlap, but those sections I think are very interesting and revealing and unique, and I think in the entire National Football League.
Mrs. McCaskey, what are your recollections of that barnstorming tour? Because it was completely unorthodox to even imagine that many games in a short period of time, traveling all over the country, 17 games in 61 days. But it was vital, wasn't it?
I don't really have any direct memories of that tour because it was just before and after my 3rd birthday. But it was such a milestone for the Chicago Bears and the National Football League in terms of crowd acceptance and recognition. I think it will always be a part of the Bears' history and the history of the National Football League. And I'd like to back up a little bit, and I don't want to accuse anyone of deception, but the way this book was presented to me and my participation is that I was the only one available to talk about the 20s and the 30s. So I figured, well, I'll do this time with Don and Dan, and then they'll find other people for the other decades. And it just didn't happen.
And we're very grateful that it didn't happen, and I think you will be if you buy the book as well, because she's got great anecdotes that she shared with us throughout the book.
Dan, what is something that you learned about the Bears before your time with the Bears? Don says it's been around for 60 years. You and I have been around for less time than that. And in preparation for these events, I've learned so much about the Bears, looking at footage from the 40s, from the 63, a couple weeks before the 73-0 game. They got beat by the Redskins, and the owner called them crybabies and quitters. What did you learn about the Bears that kind of shocked you?
Well, this is quite a bit. I mean, I'll share one story about Sid Luckman that I found out that I wasn't aware of. Sid, of course, the greatest quarterback in Bears history, one of the greatest players ever. We've got the Sid Luckman cheering section. Good to see. During World War II, he was a war hero of sorts. He made 7 trips over to England and France, including, now, you know, we just celebrated the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and he was actually a part of that movement, which I never knew. He was on a ship that delivered oil and brought back wounded soldiers during the D-Day invasion period. So in addition to being this incredible quarterback, he also was a great American hero.
You know, I'd like to answer that question too, Tom, because people ask me what was the most surprising thing you found out when you were writing the book. And it wasn't really a surprise, but it was a reminder, and maybe it was a surprise, it was a reminder of the enormous, enormous influence George Halas had on the National Football League. I mean, we talk about him being the founder, but his fingerprints were on everything from the shape of the ball to the rules, to expansion. I mean, everything about the National Football League, somehow you could trace back to George Halas. It was really fascinating to sort of review that. And I'll tell you a good story about it. You know, we talked to Mitch Trubisky and Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy. And one of the questions we asked them was, when was your first encounter with the Bears? And all of them mentioned somehow the '85 Super Bowl, by the way. And we asked, what was your favorite team growing up? And of course, Ryan is from Texas, so he liked the Dallas Cowboys. And Matt was from Pennsylvania, and somehow he got onto the Vikings. I think it was a college player that he followed. And of course, Mitch is from Ohio, and he grew up right outside of Cleveland, so his favorite team was the Browns. And what they didn't know, though, I thought about the Vikings and the Cowboys and the Browns. All three of those teams came into existence, at least partly, because of George Halas. He was he not only founded the Bears, he was the chairman of the expansion team when the Vikings and the Cowboys came in. And the reason the Browns came into existence is because George Halas, because Arch Ward was the sports editor of the Chicago Tribune. He wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills. George Halas said, "We're saving and he wanted to move the Buffalo Bills to the West Coast. This is getting to be a longer story than I had imagined, but they were going to move the Buffalo Bills to the West Coast. And George Halas said, "No, we're saving the West Coast for somebody else." So Arch Ward started the All-America Conference, which was the Browns. So all three of these teams that Pace and Trubisky and Nagy grew up liking were because of George Halas. It was just amazing.
So, Mr. McCaskey, in the whole idea of the inception of the NFL, was there ever an era that you thought the NFL might not make it?
I didn't realize it when I was growing up, but there were difficult years in the late 20s and early 30s, and my dad had the Chicago Bears, but he was also part owner of a commercial laundry company. He worked in real estate. He even tried selling cars. I often use the word survival because that's what was involved. And fortunately for us and for so many people now, it all worked out.
Your piggy bank had something to do with the survival of the Bears, too. Could you tell that story?
Pardon me?
I said your piggy bank had something to do with survival of the Bears, too.
Oh, well, at one point, my dad was so desperate that he actually spoke to my brother and me about borrowing the money that was in our savings account. And that savings account had been established by Grandma Halas, who sent us a birthday check and a Christmas check each year. And I think there was probably a couple of $100. But even that was borrowed because it was a case of buying groceries, and there were late payments on the rent of the apartment. It's hard to imagine these days with all the millions and billions of dollars that people are talking about. And Kyle Fuller mentioned how he feels about going to work at Halas Hall. And that resonated with me because each time I go up there, I think, does this really belong to us? Is this really part of our organization? I'm just amazed at the expansion of Halas Hall and can't imagine what they're going to think of next and what's going to happen in the next 100 years.
George?
So, being a former reporter, I feel compelled to clarify the record. When Coach Halas borrowed money from Mom's and Muggs' piggy banks, he promised them, "I'll pay you back." So, which he did.
So, from your perspective as a grandson and living through this journey as well, how staggering is it that $100 put on the table to start a professional sport called football has grown into billions for every team in the league and generations of fans, that their families are together in many respects on Sundays because of Bears football? And seeing George Halas and that statue every day up there at Halas Hall. How staggering is it for you to think about it that way?
Well, every day when I enter Halas Hall, I pass that statue, and I try to think about Coach Halas and all he's meant to all of us, all he's meant to the great game of football and Bears fans. And it's very much a family operation for us. This morning, we've got my favorite brother-in-law, Mike Catron, my favorite niece, Natalie, my favorite niece, Molly, my favorite brother, Pat, my favorite sister, Ann, my favorite sister, Mary, my favorite sister-in-law, Gretchen, my favorite niece, Julie, my favorite sister-in-law, Kathy, my favorite brother, Ned, my favorite nephew, Daniel, anybody, my favorite niece, Margaret, my favorite niece, Michelle, and all of us are passionate about the Bears, and all of us feel a tremendous responsibility for carrying on George Halas's legacy. And that's what we intend to do.
You know, Jeff, another story about that $100 that they started out with. George Halas admitted there wasn't $100. The idea was that each of the new franchises would put up $100. That was just to make it look legitimate. He said there wasn't $100 among them in the whole room.
You know, in the last few months, I've never heard more conversation about the Bears, about the list of the top 100. And just talking about number one, because both of you guys have had great experiences in your life as a writer to talk to number one, and I'm talking about Walter Payton. You know, for me, there is no other consideration. Before I ever came to the Bears, he was my hero. When I got to stand in the huddle with him, I was in such awe of him. It was hard to stare away from him. How did that discussion begin and end when you started filtering through all of the generations of greatness of the Bears players?
Well, I think number one was kind of a no-brainer for us. There wasn't any discussion about number one, in part because both Mrs. McCaskey and Mike Ditka believe that Peyton was the greatest Bear, and those are two pretty powerful voices. But in terms of the rest of the list, Don and I were very happy that nobody disagreed with any of the order of any of the 100 players. But you know, it's a highly subjective exercise, a very difficult exercise, because we're comparing so many players from different eras, players whose positions no longer exist or whose positions were invented at some point during the 100 years. Players who played a long time and had an impact over time versus players who had short-term contribution, current players whose legacies really aren't complete or close to complete in some cases. So it was very difficult, Tom, from that standpoint. We tried to have fun with it. We kind of went back and forth on a number of guys at the end. Don and I were just talking about this in the Blue Room in the back, that, you know, if we had another week or another month, we probably would have changed the list another 10 or 15 times. It was one of those deals. You know, there are a number of players we left off that you could second guess and question yourself about, and we have been second guessed and questioned a few times.
We wanted to make it easier than it was by arguing that we wanted to really make 3 lists. We wanted to make an offensive list, a defensive list, and a two-way player list, because there are really three different areas of expertise in football. But I want to say that it wasn't that we didn't have any discussion about number one, because the Bears have so many great players. We could have made other players number one, but Walter Payton checked the most boxes. That is, we tried to use as much objective criteria as we could for a really highly subjective process. And longevity and durability were one, production was one, honors were one, impact was one. And if you go down the list, if it were just longevity and durability, Gale Sayers might not have made the list. So you had to weigh these different criteria, and Walter just checked more boxes than really anybody else.
How did you two feel about the 100 and have your opinions? And I tell you one thing that sticks out to me in going back all the way to the 20s, 30s, and 40s and reading about the legendary Bears that we obviously could not see at our age now was a simple word for me that has riveted my whole focus moving forward, and I know it has yours as well, Mrs. McCaskey, but toughness. I mean, so many of these old Bears were viewed like we view Dick Butkus right now, or we view, you know, any number of guys that played with a vengeance on the field with some unbelievable fury, and were recognized as such and viewed as such throughout their careers.
I didn't notice the back inside cover of the book until just before I returned it. So I paid attention, of course, to number one and noticed that Pat Manley made it at 100. And the book was on its way back to Hallis Hall. So one of the things I'm looking forward to is seeing the complete list. And I'm sure you did a very difficult and outstanding job.
You know, Mr. McCaskey, one thing that I've taken away from this weekend and in studying for this event, and Jeff mentioned it, it's across the board, the word is always toughness, whether it's George Halas saying it or someone saying it from another team about the Bears. Yesterday we had Mike Brown up here and brought to tears because of his love for the Bears. I'm sure you've had to see that before in your life, but the respect that a lot of these alumni have for the Bears, have for their existence with being the Bears, having the opportunity to play for fans like this in stadiums across the landscape, that's got to be a great reflection to you and your family, that it means so much to players years after the fact that they have been retired.
This weekend has been like a happy dream that just keeps going on and on. You wonder how many more wonderful people will be showing up and how many people are saying thank you. I am so grateful to all of our staff who have worked so hard to prepare for this time. And I just want to say to Tom and Jeff, known them both for a long time. I've always been comfortable with them and considered them friends. But watching you and listening to you yesterday, panel after panel, you were so prepared for all of your individual relationships and questions. I'm amazed, and thank you.
Thank you. Hey, we're humbled. We're honored to be here, and thank you for your trust in us, honestly. Choking me up here. Don't make me cry on stage, please.
He'll never stop.
Yeah, I'll never stop. I'm an emotional guy. Well, I was going to ask you a different question, but I'll feed off of those panels. I don't think I've been around. I mean, we used to do Bears fan conventions and had, great conversations as well, but the raw emotion yesterday, Mrs. McCaskey, George, and I don't know if you guys were here, especially in that defensive line. I mean, it's all about 19 now. These ex-Bears are, it's in their heart. It's in their soul. They are Bears to the core, and they want the best for these guys. They want a championship. And, I mean, that Akeem Hicks comment yesterday, I accept your challenge. Wow, that gave me goosebumps. And I'll tell you, it had to you. Did it? What did you think of that? Both of you guys.
The reaction to Akeem Hicks is saying, we accept your challenge, from Ed O'Bradovich, from Dan Hampton, Chris Zorich, Tommy Harris, that sat up here. There was a lot of pressure put on Akeem Hicks about the desire for success for the 2019 team.
Well, after my first mini tour of expanded Hallis Hall, I spoke to Coach about all of this great facility, and how are you going to help the players realize that now is the time to understand that all of this is here for their benefit, for their utilization, but they're the ones who have to use everything that's available to them now. And there's just so much that technology can do, and then it's back to the human effort, determination, perseverance, and all those good words.
They're great
all the
words.
intangibles.
And Coach's response was, I'm working on it. Don't worry.
You know, it's no longer Hallis Hall, it's Hallis Campus. Because when we used to go to old Hallis Hall, 250 North Washington, and the other ones you've seen before it, they were like a hall. Nowadays, it's one of the most impressive growths of the Chicago Bears is what you've provided for the players and their opportunity to succeed.
No excuses.
Sadly, because we haven't even scratched the surface, obviously, but time is dwindling. We do have questions from the crowd. If somebody wants to bring those out to me, that'd be great. Do you have any comments or any favorite moments of the championships that you got to witness in Bears history?
I was thinking on the way here this morning of our present-day coach and how he relates to our history and the Chicago Bears. My dad, George Hallis, certainly celebrated every championship. But all through the season, it was very serious work and very concentrated situations. There are pictures of him in the locker room after the various championships, and I love them. But our present-day coach has made each game and each week a possible celebration, and I think that is a very excellent difference. The season is so much longer, it's so much harder to get to the final game and win the final game. but we're hoping for a lot of those Club Dub pictures, and they're welcome to it.
All right, a couple of questions as we have time. This is from Hannah in Arlington Heights. Mrs. McCaskey, what was your favorite game ever to watch at Wrigley Field?
I think the '63 championship game, even though it wasn't against the Packers. It was the culmination of a championship season and my dad's final championship. And we had beaten the Packers previously in Green Bay and in Wrigley Field that season, so that was good too.
And then from Jessica in Vernon Hills, who was your favorite player to wear a Bears uniform? The crowd already gave the answer because that's a tough one.
Walter.
You know, it's ingrained in every Bears fan's memory. Can you remember the first time you heard the first Bears fight song, and when it was played, when it was introduced, and how well was it accepted initially?
Well, there was an earlier Bears song before Bear Down Chicago Bears. And then that was replaced, and my dad was smart enough. I don't know how he knew about the music business, but he actually purchased the song so that all the performance rights and the money came to the Bears instead of the writer of the song. And one of my favorite memories of the championship game against the Saints was that it seemed like everybody in Soldier Field finally knew the words that everybody was singing. So practice for the season.
What did you think of 1985? What did you think of 1985?
That was a very unusual team and a very unusual season because so much of the normal stress of game day seemed to be disappearing. We could go to the game and not be completely knotted up inside. There was so much confidence in everyone, and except for the game in Miami, everything turned out very well.
And lastly from me, and I think everybody here would like to know, I never had that fortunate experience to meet Mr. Halas. How would you describe him? What was he like? And what's your fondest memory?
George should say something. There are so many, and I really couldn't That's why I don't do this very often. I'm sorry.
No worries. Put it this way, he was a great man. And he was the innovating and motivating force while we're all here today. George?
Let me jump in, and that'll give Mom time to compose her answer. But all of my brothers and sisters and I remember waiting for Grandpa outside the Cubs locker room at Wrigley Field after the games. And one of the things that amazed me was, win or lose, when he came out of that dressing room and saw us, he was just Grandpa, you know, how you doing, champ? Hey, kid, how are you, you know? And making sure that that moment was special for us. And that's one of my fondest memories of him, just coming out of the locker room.
All right. Well, we could spend many, many, many hours. We could spend 15 to 20 hours with you just like these guys did. It's been an incredible journey, an incredible weekend, and thank you for allowing us to share it with you and your family. Thank you so much for being here. And
may I say one last thing? Tom was talking about the socks of the, look at those shoes.
And I have read the book cover to cover. It's amazing. So these two gentlemen did a very difficult job. They made it read easy. So enjoy it. Enjoy the scrapbook. Enjoy all the artifacts, the scouting reports of players, all the stories. The other reflection of that book that these guys captured as well, yes, it was about sport and about the NFL, but it's about life in each of those decades. And the Bears had an impact in that too, related to what was going on at that time and place, whether it be the Depression, the assassination of President Kennedy. It's historical. It's great. Get it. Enjoy it. One more seminar to go. Big hand for everybody up here. Thank you so much.
CEO Ted Phillips, General Manager Ryan Pace, and Chicago Bears head coach Matt Nagy.
Okay. Swaggy Nagy, did you hear that? This is going to be fun, let me tell you right now. So, in sports, it doesn't matter what it is. In business, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, when the leaders are all on the same page, great things happen, and there is buy-in, there is conviction. And we've seen that from this group up here over the years, and certainly with Matt's arrival in 2018. And we saw dramatic wins, we saw near misses, we saw 3 wins in 12 days in the division in 2018, clinching the NFC North, a division title win over the Packers. Yes, to the painful exit from the playoffs, to the dawning of a new day, and the grind set to begin again here in 2019 with high expectations and a new battle cry of chasing great. We present your leaders here today, everybody, so let's dig into the conversation. Big Tom, I'm going to let you lead off right out of the gate.
Well, between Ted and Ryan, the process of Matt Nagy being here, could you just, talk about the process of how that plan started and that momentum moved on?
Talk about the hiring process with Coach?
Yeah, Ryan, it seems like your thinking never stops, whether it's scouting players, watching games, and then when the investigative process of what we as Bears fans have been through for generations, how does that process start for you?
I would think, just with anything we do, player acquisition and definitely a head coach, it was very, very thorough process. There's a tremendous amount of research that goes into that. So it's obviously references, talking to coaches, scouts, players, agents, equipment guys. It was pretty in-depth. I remember watching pretty much any interview Matt's ever done just to get a feel for his personality. As we went into those interviews, I was pretty sure the type of person he was, and I think Ted can attest to this too. Probably couple minutes into our interview with Matt, we knew pretty quickly that he was going to be the head coach of the Chicago Bears. And so to be honest, like this guy's a rock star, and I'm not. I haven't been surprised. It hasn't surprised me just because that's just who he is, and we're really lucky to have him as our head coach.
Yeah, it's easy for me. I get to sit here with the executive of the year and the head coach of the year. And I'll tell you what, I mean, Ryan Pace, when he decided it was time to make a coaching change, his detailed review analysis was beyond approach. It was unbelievable. And the whole process, what was really nice is that he kind of knew that Matt might be the guy. And we were lucky enough, because we had interviews with several different coaching candidates, that Matt was the last one. So we went through some crazy times, including hair-raising flights to New England and back. And when we got to Kansas City and we started interviewing Matt, I remember telling George and Ryan, I'm still waiting for one person to come in here and say, I want to be the coach of the Chicago Bears, and really mean it. Sure enough, first thing out of Matt's mouth was that. And then I think we all kind of felt, because like Ryan said, he knew what Matt was about as a person, that this is the guy. And what can you say? First year, 12-4, coach of the year. We love having you, Matt.
It's almost like a dream, isn't it, for you?
Yeah, it is. It's this just right here speaks. You get to see who these men are, and for me, it's completely a dream. But it's not a dream because I know it's real, and I'm having fun. And so getting back to the interview, the day of the interview, the way I was going to approach it was to just let everything happen the way it's supposed to happen. And within 5 minutes of being in that hotel room with George, Ted, and Ryan, it felt like family. And for me, I knew right away that this was my new home and this was my new family. And so now the rest was going to be on me just being able to show them who I am and let them, feel that from me. And it's just, when you know something and you feel good about it, it's just so easy to just let your own personality show. And that's where I talk about being you. And from day one, I can honestly say the relationship that we have from the top with Mrs. McCaskey, the whole way down to the very bottom of whoever that is, being all of us, we never changed. And we're all here, and we're here for the betterment of the Chicago Bears and for the city of Chicago, for you fans. And we know there's only one reason, really, why we're all here, and it's time to do it.
Ted, you've been a part of the Bears family since '83, so Ryan and Matt, I want to ask you this. Did you get a better understanding of family when you sat back there and you saw the generations of players that have come through the doors? Because, look, when we were kids, we watched highlights of Butkus. We know what Walter Payton is all about. But now you're handshaking with generations of players, and then you see and you hear the passion from their voices. Do you get a better sense of the family of the Bears from meeting the generations of players?
Without a doubt. And I'm going to show my youth here, which is going to be crazy to a lot of people out here. But the very first NFL game I ever remember was that Super Bowl against the Patriots. That's as crazy as that sounds. And so, things in life happen for a reason. And so for me, I was just like a little kid back there in that room when we got here on Friday night, just to be able to see the legacy of what these players have done from years and years and years ago, to sit back and just take it all in. It's surreal. You can't make it up. It's a night that all of us will never forget. So fortunate to be a part of. The stories that were being told. I'm really excited, to tell you the truth, on Monday, tomorrow, to get in there with our players and our coaches. I cannot wait to hear the stories that they got and what they took in and how it's going to affect them for this coming year. You feel it, and it's real, and that's what I'm so happy for.
Get up. I don't know, did you see or hear about the defensive line roundtable we had yesterday with Akeem?
I did.
I mean, he was sitting right here, and we're talking about their careers, but they're bringing it all back to 19, and they're talking to Akeem. And he brought the house down. He was ready to play. He was ready to go. And he said, I accept your challenges. That's all he said. It was a mic drop. Place went crazy. You show that to the team tomorrow.
And one of the things that a lot of us saw back there, we kind of stood back, but Friday night we were back in the room, and in the back left corner, with no one really paying attention except for everybody, we were all looking, and Richard Dent and Khalil Mack, and Richard Dent trying to help Khalil on some different techniques that he could do coming off the edge, and we were all watching it. And I'm telling you, Khalil's sitting there taking it all in, and it was pretty cool, because this is what it's all about. It's about learning from some of the greatest that have ever come through here, and the players that we have are such good, high character people that they don't ever think that they got all the answers. We have a lot of good players, good people, and now we're all trying to mix it, put it together.
I think Matt recommended a book that we're reading right now called Legacy, and it's about the New Zealand All Blacks and their rich history. And I think about us in Chicago, and it's really a competitive advantage for us to have the history that we have, because not many sports franchises can say this. So when we're back there and you see our players and our coaches and our staff interacting with all these great people, to me, it just puts this sense of responsibility on yourself. You want to leave, our players want to leave the jersey in a better place than they found it. I think of, Matt's talking to Coach Ditka. We talk about George Halas. I think about Jim Finks. I mean, we can go on and on and on about the history of the Bears, and it just makes you so proud to be part of this. but then this tremendous responsibility to carry it on for those guys.
Did it hit you hard Friday night? Did it really, you personally?
It really did. I think it sinks in. And, you know, I mean, for Matt and I to sit back there and talk to Coach Ditka for 45 minutes, I mean, that's a highlight. That's huge. And just to feel it and see we have a young team right now, and to see them look at these players and see what this city can be like with success as we get this thing rolling. I think that's a contagious energy that those guys feel, and it's awesome for all of us to experience.
I have to say, so being with the Bears for 36 years, Friday night was so special. In that back room, there were players there who haven't been back for 20 years. One of my favorite players, Neil Anderson, okay? For those of you that don't know, he replaced he was the successor at running back to Walter Payton. Huge, huge shoes to fill. And to see him there, he had his family, one of the most genuine, smiling Bear players who just loves the Bears. It was so special. Tell you a quick story. A couple years ago on draft day, before the draft got started, one of our scouts, Jeff Shiver, was emailing someone. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm emailing Neil Anderson." And I was like, "Oh my God." I said, "I haven't talked to him for 15 years. I emailed him. 2 weeks later, at home, I get a box of peanuts because he owns peanut farms in Florida. And, I mean, that's the kind of, I tell you that because that's the kind of players we have at the Bears. They never forget you. They love coming back here, talking to each other, talking to the staff, and it was just so special for me. So,
you know, to amplify about Neil Anderson, he's a first-round draft choice out of University of Florida, running back to take over for Walter. So his first year there, Walter's still there. Neil Anderson came to the Bears. Nothing he was against it. He was the greatest special teams player on punt team we've ever had. He was unblockable, unstoppable, and he would deliver punishing tackles. And it was more of his respect for the team that he was drafted by and what he was willing to do. And I think it's neat because we were up here talking to a couple of the Bears players when they come to the new Hallis Hall and they start in their locker room downfield. In earning your way up those stairs, earning your locker, it's important. It was important back in the old Hallis Hall. We were all in one hallway together, all in these crappy metal lockers, but then when you earn your opportunity, and that's a unique thing about guys like Neil and the other players, is they are concerned about earning their opportunity onto the field.
And Ted, in your position, I mean, as you said, you've been here for 36 years, you're beginning your 37th year. You know, who brought you into the organization? Why did you want to be in sports? And having those relationships as a negotiator for the early part of your career, that wasn't always easy to have those relationships that you renew here in 2019.
Yeah, so in 1983, I was hired by Jerry Venisi, who had just become the general manager of the Bears after Jim Finks left. So he hired me as the financial person. I can take up the rest of the time with negotiation stories if you want.
Just give us your best of all time.
So I'll give you a couple snippets. So 1987, I started negotiating player contracts for the Bears. Jim Harbaugh was our first #1 pick. So I spent hours being really detailed preparing for that negotiation. His agent at the time was Lee Steinberg, at the time considered the #1 quarterback agent in the business. They were in California. I was in Platteville, Wisconsin, so there was a 3-hour time difference. And those guys purposely, they knew I was a rookie, would call me at 8 at night, their time, to start negotiating. So I'd be on the phone from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m. One day they finally came to Platteville. And they came in with squirt guns and squirted me with water to try to lessen the tension. So I still love Jim Harbaugh to this day because he was my first #1 pick. But there's one negotiation which stands out for me. I think it was about 1989, and it was with Steve McMichael. But but understand it wasn't with his agent at the end, it was with him. So, you know, you probably saw Steve this weekend, he slimmed down, but back then, he was about probably 300 pounds. His biceps were bigger than my head. And we sat for a negotiation at one point, and I wasn't any further away from him, probably closer than Tom is to me. And it wasn't going well. And he had that long, stringy hair and that Texas drawl. And he looked at me near the end, and he said, "Ted, you know what I'd like to do to you when this negotiation is over?" Now, I'm about 31 years old, so I'm trying to maintain composure. And I took a deep breath. I was scared to death inside. My heart was pounding. And I just said, matter-of-factly, "No, Steve, what?" He said, "I'd like to punch you right in the face." So I didn't end the negotiation there, because he probably would have. It ended a few days later. He stayed a Bear. And to this day, whenever I see him, gives me a big bear hug. Again, that's the kind of and he hasn't hit me yet.
Ryan, I got hit in the face with him a lot of times. Ryan, how about your path to where you started, you set your sights, and where you're at in this chair today?
Yeah, I think, you know, what's interesting is when you talk about how really all three of us started, we all have our stories. And, you know, Matt was doing a 90-mile drive from Mannheim to the Eagles complex at 4 in the morning. And, you know, I know talking to Ted, you know, he took the reins of contract negotiations with the Bears when the Bears needed it, and he had never done it before. And then for me, it was 2001, driving down to New Orleans and standing in line at a job fair for a couple hours and walking in the door and telling them I'll work for free. That's, you know, we all kind of have our story on how we started, but I think all those experiences have molded us into who we are now. And I just think you have an appreciation for every single person in the building. I think it keeps you humble and operating with humility, and just really proud of where we're at now, because, you know, it's a tough road up. You know.
In many respects, and we all do it to a certain extent, but all three of you, you bet on yourselves. You bet on yourselves that you would climb whatever ladder is put in front of you. Obviously, you had to have people helping you along the way, but in large respect, you had to dig deep and do it yourself. Would that characterize the three of you? Is that possibly why you guys get along so well, and why you picked him to be your general manager, and why you guys chose Matt Nagy to be your head coach?
You have to believe in yourself. Like Ryan pointed out, I had never negotiated contracts in my life. I was 30 years old. And I will always be thankful to a man in the Bears organization named Bill McGrain. He used to run our headquarter operations, our travel, and he was really wise. He had come into the Bears from Minnesota with Jim Finks in the 70s. He's since passed away. And I'll never forget him encouraging me to go to Mike McCaskey in '87 after Jerry Venisi had been let go. And he said, "Ted, you can do this." And I was scared out of my mind, but I did it. I thought to myself, you know what? If you don't take a chance on yourself, who's going to do it for you? And it worked out great. I am so thankful and blessed to be a Bear every day. Never had a bad day. Never have a difficult day coming to work. I'm in the NFL with the best franchise in the business.
When you decided you wanted to be a general manager and you were going to go for it, and you interviewed for this job, did you already have an idea of what type of player you wanted to bring in to the building, or did you tailor it to fit the mold of the history of this franchise? Because a lot of what you do reflects the history of this franchise.
I think, Jeff, when you're fortunate enough to get a job like this, the first step is, you know, there's going to be a lot of heavy lifting. You know, they come available for a reason, so you know what you're going into. And for me, I just had confidence that as long as we had time, we could slowly turn this culture, starting with our staff, and then the right kind of players. And it's an emphasis for us. And Matt and I talk about it every single day. And I think now that we have our culture kind of dialed in, we're even more conscious on who we're bringing into our locker room. And it really starts there. But I think it's a combination of your past experiences, what you've seen succeed. For me in New Orleans, going from Katrina to a Super Bowl in 2009 and seeing how that transpired, and then coming to Chicago and knowing what this organization stands for, what this city stands for, what will make our fans proud. And we're very conscious of that as scouts in the draft room, in free agency, to make sure we're hitting on all those traits. And I think we get better and better each year as we refine that.
Matt, I think it's admirable and cool what you did on the first snap against the Green Bay Packers, the T formation, Papa Bear left. A lot of coaches, honestly, and you know, I've been covering sports for 33 years. Some are real stubborn. They just want to do what they want to do. They don't think about the bigger picture. You think about the bigger picture. You're tethered to this franchise already, deep into it from day one. Was that a conscious decision, or is it just the best way to relate?
No, it's a little bit of both. I think you're crazy if you don't do that. Actually, that's the way I look at it. I mean, for us, we as coaches and our players, we kind of sprinkle it in and let them know. When we first got here last year, we explained how rich this tradition is and what it's all about, and how fortunate you need to feel to be in this position, all of us. And so that was a way to tell our fans, our city, our organization, thank you, we respect you, and we're looking to carry the torch. And so there'll be a lot more of those coming, don't worry. Those are fun. Those are fun. They're fun when they work. Coming up with names, you know, we're taking names from everybody right now, all over the place, but the guys remember it, and but you know, we're trying to have fun with the players. And then, you know, you go back and we have film from back in the 40s. We have the film, and there's some stuff that's pretty neat. And matter of fact, we found a play that was darn near identical to the result, going to the left on the Papa Bear left that we ran against Green Bay last year for the same gain of 7 yards on first down. So those are they signify who we are as fun.
I just have to add, if you guys could see how these two gentlemen work together seamlessly in the office, you'd be so proud of them. And the results are showing, but every day they have such a great working relationship. And I have to add, when Ryan Pace interviewed, he knocked it out of the park. Okay, George and I wanted to hire him on the spot. However, we had one more interview to go. And it was with an internal candidate who actually now is the general manager of the Indianapolis Colts, Chris Ballard, so he's a really fine man. But we forced ourselves to go through that interview, and then when it ended, if I'm not mistaken, we called Ryan and said, you got to come back here now. So it's the kind of person he is. He was so well prepared. You can feel when he talks about the team, the fire and the passion and the competitiveness that he has. And Matt has all of it as well. They're authentic guys. Love them both.
I want to second that with, I want to second Ted. And you know, as the head coach, you get all the credit when you win. And, you know, everybody needs to understand what Ted just said, how fortunate we are to have Ryan Pace as our general manager. He's behind the scenes, and you want to talk about a rock star, he's the rock star. And so, and he'll never tell you that. The one thing about Ryan is he'll never, ever tell you that, because he's one of the most humble people I've ever met in my entire life. And it's just, that's what it's all about. And when you have that, good things normally happen. And we're in that right now. I'm lucky as heck to be his partner. And, you know, we always say we'll either, if there's times, we'll agree to disagree, but there's not very many of those. And we're in this thing together. And I just want to say thank you. I mean, because we're in a good spot right now.
Gotta let the applause. So, Matt, I have a question for you. So I was raised by the Chicago Bears, that type of run-the-ball football. My last year in the NFL, I went to the Miami Dolphins purposely to play there for a year and sit in meetings with Don Shula and learn a different aspect of football. In your background, you have a great deal of experience in the Arena League. And I've seen you go out to practice and throw one-on-ones and stuff at practice. How does that type of education into football translate to the modern day game that seems to be not Arena League-ish, but getting the ball out of the quarterback's hands and the development of Mitchell Trubisky? How does that translate to here?
Yeah, Tom, I think the thing that it does the most for me with our players is probably the quarterback position. I played quarterback in it. Everything happens a lot quicker.
Look at him zing it.
That's a bad release. Bad release.
Break it down. Break down that release.
Yeah.
How's the footwork?
Just okay. I hope it's a completion. Yeah, there we go. On Kyle Fuller. I will let. Yeah, fire. There it is. There's more of that to come in Bourbonnais this year. But it's good. It's all about, we call them anticipatory throws, throwing the ball on time. And in the Arena League, the field's half the size, so the ball's got to come out quick. And so our guys use that, and our coaches use it. But the other part of it, too, is just with some of the choices that you can give to the wide receivers with their adjustments within their routes in a play. And you have to do that a lot in the Arena League. But other than that, there's no walls to be hit over or get, throwing footballs into the stands after a touchdown per se all the time in the end zone, falling over walls. But it was fun. It was good.
Let's talk Mitch Trubisky. In the Centennial Scrapbook, which we just discussed, there's scouting reports in there, the original scouting reports of Brian Urlacher and reading about Bill Tobin, Jim Finks, and how he put together that 1983 draft. Amazing stuff. Take us behind the scenes a little bit when he first got on your radar and how you started to begin the scouting of Mitch Trubisky and why he's a Bear today.
I think, Jeff, with any of the players that we're drafting, it really starts with our area scouts first. They're the first boots on the ground. They kind of get these guys on the radar, and then it trickles down to all of us. So for me, it was probably mid-season that year. I saw him live in the Sun Bowl, and you're trying to keep these things quiet, especially with the quarterback position. But you fast forward to as we get closer to the draft, and I think you know how we operate, and it's when you have conviction, there's a no regrets mindset we all live by. Matt lives by it. When you have conviction on somebody, let's make this work, let's make this happen. We applied it to Mitch. We applied it to Khalil Mack. We can go on and on these decisions we made. I just don't want to ever look back when this is all said and done. And so, man, we felt it, we had it in our gut, and we didn't act. We're going to be responsible with how we do this, but there's a no regrets mindset, and I think Mitch is an example of that.
Ryan, you said he came on your radar about mid-season. Is that unique in the time of coming onto your radar, or is your radar kind of shrink as time goes on?
Yeah, Tom, it shrinks as time goes on. David Montgomery would be a good example this year too. I always like to ask our scouts, tell me the player in your area that you had the most conviction on. And it could be in the first round, or it might be in the 7th round. Tell me a guy you have the most conviction on, because those guys have been going to that school for years, and they have a really good feel for that. And I really value our scouts' opinions, and then it just goes from there. And they narrow it down for me. The ability to go see those guys live helps a lot when I'm able to get out. But I think that's how it all happens. And then of course there's the combine, and we go visit him at his school, and the 30 visits, and there's a thorough, hard-working process. But that's how it kind of went down with Mitch.
Matt, how proud are you of him taking the reins like he has? And a year ago, he kind of set the tone. We are going to win. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. It was like the stamp from your quarterback. And they did.
Yeah, it's an amazing challenge that we put in front of him last year coming here. It's funny, I was just going through our playbook, our training camp playbook from last year at this time, and I said to Helfrich and Ragone, I said, it's crazy how much we put in that last year at this time. We threw a lot at him, and he handled it all. Our players handled it all offensively, and didn't blink. And they understood that we were going to try to see how much they could digest. And in somebody like in the quarterback position, when you have all these different responsibilities that you have between calling the play, getting up to the line of scrimmage, seeing the defense, making the throw, leading your players, telling them how to play, there's a lot on your plate. He never once ever fired back or got so frustrated to the point to where he broke. And that was a testament to Mitch. And so he knows we have his back. He knows how much we believe in him. He knows we're going to go as far as he goes. And he wants that. And I'm just saying right now, we are in such a great spot with this kid as the leader of our offense and the leader of our team. I'm so excited to see where he's about to take this thing here as we go in training camp, and I feel very fortunate.
Ted, as we are sitting at a draft event that night, the commissioner comes to the podium and he says, "There's been a trade." And the anticipation seemed like it was an hour long, but it was only seconds. When was that information transferred to you and Ryan saying, "Hey, this is the guy we're looking at and we're jumping up to get him"?
Well, that's one of the special traits that Ryan has, and it makes me. I'll answer that question this way. It makes me reflect a little. So none of us have met George Halas. I started 4 weeks before George Halas died. But when I think about some of the stories that Ed and Virginia, McCaskey family, and others have told me about George Halas, I think he would appreciate the risk-taking, the making tough decisions, doing things that are in the best interest of the club, and having passion for it. And all of that, Ryan said, "Ted, I just want you to know, Trubisky's our guy. There's a lot of action, and if we need to trade up one spot, we're going to do it." And I love that. If you don't take risks like that, when you know you found your leader for the future, you got to go get him, whatever it takes. And he did that.
You know, it's interesting because when you read the scrapbook of the Chicago Bears and you looked at some of the people that they did miss or pass up on
at the quarterback position,
right?
Yeah,
I think it made the Bears fans, when you see the dedication of Mitchell Trubisky, it makes everybody more encouraged and excited about the decision made and what Mitchell Trubisky's future can be.
Well, every team's chasing quarterback. I mean, that's the bottom line. It has to be. You got to find one.
The other thing too that sometimes I don't think many people other than the city here understands. I've been around a lot of quarterbacks in my life. I'm going to tell you right now, you want to talk about blue-collar tough, this kid is tough. And he's in there trying to lift weights with the O-lineman. He's in there trying, and we got Mitch, you can't do that. We got a shoulder right here we got to protect. But this kid, he's dirty tough, and we love that about him. Every single player on our team will go to bat for him and understand how lucky we are. And when you have that toughness with the skill set that he has as a passer and as a leader and everything else that he does, he's 100% football 100% of the time, and I love that about him.
Ryan, it just occurred to me, and don't you love these folks?
We're the best.
I mean, they're jacked up. We love this passion.
Love it.
So it occurs to me because it's so easy in sports and certainly in today's world with every medium out there in the social realm. Everybody plays general manager. Everybody plays fantasy football in their mind. Oh, you know, he should do this. They should do this. You make these decisions in a billion-dollar industry. Do you ever had any of these decisions over time, these quiet moments of reflection for yourself? Man, am I going to do this? Like, is this actually the right thing? I mean, what are those moments like for you? And we can talk about Khalil Mack also making that decision. I mean, when you're having just private Ryan Pace time.
I think, you know, I never want to just say me. You know, it's us. And when we make these decisions, we're making these decisions together. And so you're only as good as the people around you. So it's a team effort when we make these decisions. And you know, ultimately we're pulling the trigger together. But again, I think there's a lot of people that maybe can go through life, and I discourage our scouts from doing this, of not wanting to make decisions, riding the fence, you know, and it's easy to do that. to really be successful, you got to be willing to make hard decisions. You know, are you going to be 100% all the time? You know, maybe not, but hopefully you're going to learn from those moments when you aren't. And I feel like we've done that over the years, but we're not afraid to make decisions. We'll ignore the media narrative and do what's right for the Bears. And that's what it all comes down to, what's best for the Bears. So the Khalil Mack decision, I remember driving home that night, we knew it was done, and going to bed that night, it's late, and thinking, you know, I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, and this thing's going to be huge. And really not knowing.
Let me just cut in real quick. He was jamming the whole way home to Return of the Mac.
Did you sleep? Hey, Ryan, did you sleep at all that night?
No, it's funny. So I walk in. It was Stephanie. My wife was still awake, and she's sitting on the couch, and I walk in, and it's late, and she goes, "How was work?" And I said, "You know, how was your day?" I said, "It was good. We got Khalil Mack," and she said, "What?" I didn't sleep. There's just so much there was so much build up to that, and we can talk about how that whole thing unfolded. But there was so much build up and so much collaboration and so many hurdles we overcame along the way. But still, when it's about to happen, I mean, we're all human. You're a little nervous. You're a little tense about it. But it's been outstanding.
But in terms of checking all the boxes to finish it was in a very small time frame. I mean, there's no room for error, really.
Yeah, there wasn't, but you know, Ryan did a great job of being prepared, being transparent. We talked through like why this guy was a difference maker, and that night when it was done, I had about $140 million reasons in my head, like, oh my God, what are we doing this for? But you know what? What a pick! What a decision! And could you have picked the best first game for him to have? He's going to be better this year with a training camp with Matt.
Yeah, the other part of that too is what we all need to understand is it's like you said about fantasy. We can make decisions, but then you also have to be able to have the okay from management, right, and from ownership to say, you know what, you got our backing, you have our support, and we had that. And not every city and not every organization will give that to their head coach and general manager. We have that here. So I think we need to all understand that.
The other, go ahead.
So, and Ryan said it earlier, but when we talk about big decisions internally, we always say, no regrets. When you can say that to yourself, you can sleep well at night and go forward.
The other part of it is, and it's culture. So, yes, this is Khalil Mack. Okay, do we really know what he is? His personality, is he going to fit chemistry-wise? He's a great player, one of the premier pass rushers in football. So you have to dig that out too. But then it's got to filter into the locker room. Is he accepted? But he's your hardest worker.
Jeff,
one of your hardest workers, that fit.
I would say this. We did obviously a tremendous amount of research on him. You know the type of player he is. He's young. He plays a premier position. But when you're talking about his makeup and his work ethic and all those things that he embodies, that's even exceeded expectations for us. I mean, he is the hardest worker on our team. You see it in the weight room. You see it every single day. So when our players are watching Khalil Mack, arguably the best defensive player in the NFL, work like that, it trickles down to our whole roster. So he's definitely been a multiplier and even exceeded expectations on that level, which has been awesome.
You know, within the new culture of the Bears, Ted and I both started at 250 North Washington, 100,000 square foot of pure football pleasure. Now it's a Hallis Hall campus, and I think that's an important part of the culture of the Bears and how the players accept it. Ted, how did that venture start, and how has it filtered through the team, the meetings, and the players?
Well, we had been at Hallis Hall for the current Hallis Hall for 20 years, and Ryan and I started talking, and he's got he loves looking to the future. He's a top athlete himself, and he's always looking for that edge. How do we get that extra 1-2% edge over someone else? And all of a sudden, we looked and we decided, wow, we can actually fit this facility on our campus, and we need to do it for the team. We had done it for offices and as the staff grew, but to expand and make it a first-class experience, a work environment for the players and the coaches and the scouts, that's what drove it. And I think we have a headquarters now that's second to none. And that'll lead us, you know, it's great today celebrating the first 100 years, but part of my job, Ryan's job, Matt's job is how do we start that next 100 years off the right way? We've got the team, we've got the GM and the coach, we've got the facilities, so we're ready to go.
Ryan, when that whole idea, the inception of that idea, and then you see the end result, for us alumni, it's as impressive as a facility as you can see anywhere around the country, around the world in sports. Is it equally as impressive to you at this point?
I mean, you guys know how much of a passion this is for us, and every single day pulling up right now, you have such a sense of pride when you pull up to the building because of our team and our staff, and then now our facility. And for the McCaskey family to allow us to do that, and really with George and Ted leading the charge and making this happen, it's been a dream come true. And I think one of the advantages we have as scouts is we're on the road and you see all these top college facilities and you can see how high those are going, and the NFL is doing it now too. So we went out and we visited, 7, 8, 9, 10 places. And with the college facilities, you have to differentiate, okay, this is for flash and recruiting for an 18-year-old kid, and they got 15 different jerseys. For us, it was, okay, what can we take from these facilities that functionally helps us win games? Like, how does this make our players better? And that's what we've done. And when our players walk in that building, there's such a sense of pride from them, too. Like, our organization is reinvesting in us to make us better athletes. And you can see it throughout the building. Our staff, our draft room, or the coaches' offices, you can feel it, and it just gives you such support to succeed for this franchise.
Matt, what is the feedback from players about this unbelievable facility? And folks, it's spectacular. The pictures don't do it justice.
No, they understand completely what they're dealing with. And we made it a message April 13th when they got here. It was completely fresh. Is by no means do you ever think you're getting spoiled with this thing, and you're not going to get soft. I mean, it's so nice that you got to work even harder now because you have this. And we've invested a lot to help you feel exactly how you should feel, and that's at being the best in the NFL. And they've done an amazing job. We've talked about the attendance in the voluntary camp. Everyone's showing up. Everyone's working hard. It feels really good right now with where we're at. Coaches too. I mean, the coaches, we have amazing offices that we're working from now, and there's just there's an advantage for us right now that we need to take full advantage of these facilities, and it's just a credit to everybody for being a part of it.
All right, we have less than 7 minutes. Time's flying by, that's for sure. I know we have some questions from the crowd. We'll be getting those here in a moment. Matt, it's an obvious question. It's asked of every head coach when they debut. What'd you learn about yourself in 2018 that you can apply 2019 and moving forward?
Well, the biggest thing is that you're only as good as the people around you. And it sounds kind of cliche-ish, but that's really true. And for myself, coming in as a first-year head coach, the ultimate goal is to be able to earn the trust of your coaches and players. And that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen in the first couple weeks. You need to build it through relationships. That's at practice, in meetings, and then on game day. And then you also need to do it by winning. If you don't win, none of us are going to be here very long. And so once you win, they start listening to more and more of what you have to say. They start believing in what you have to say. The trust gets a lot stronger. And now you build this bully. And we're right there at that point to where everyone really believes in each other. It's becoming such a great bond that we have, and we just can't wait to get back to training camp and then be rolling in that week 1.
When that schedule came out, it's hard for anybody to deny week 1. But the roller coaster schedule of starting times, going to London, do you reinvent the thinking process, or have you had enough experience in those roller coaster schedules where you know how to be able to set up your schedule before the season ever starts?
So Tom, for me personally, I was my greatest mentor that I have in the football world is Coach Reed, and he's always taught me a lesson. When you're a head coach, you better not be hoping for 12 o'clock games. You better be wanting those primetime games. And if you're getting primetime games, it means you're doing something right. So when we're there right now, but we're not done. And so 6-7 years ago when we got to Kansas City, we had all 12 o'clock games. And by the end of it, the last couple of years, there was a bunch of primetime games. And now here we are last year, there was a lot of 12 o'clock when we got here. We had a couple flexed as the year went on. They wanted a part of it. And now here we are this year. But there's a responsibility and an accountability for all of us now. But that, if you don't crave that and you don't want that, you need to get out. And we want that. We want that. Everybody here wants it, you know? So let's go, right? Come on, I'm getting like fired up right now.
Hey, after meeting,
there you go.
Oh, there it is.
Talk about getting fired up.
Yeah.
Club Dub.
Here's the deal with
Sweeping
that,
the
too.
nation.
Here's the deal. I just had a goal this morning. I want Mrs. McCaskey in the middle of that at the very end of the year in the big boy. I want her front and center. Right?
In all reality, that has had more impact, I believe, than people might have suspected. Not only here, but throughout the league. Guys talk, agents talk, agents talk. Have you guys heard back on that? Or just how you guys play the game? Just your personality and how the players view you. Ryan and Matt, what have you heard from agents? And when you started interviewing free agents and so forth and the draft picks.
That's 100% true, Jeff. Like this free agency, we felt it right away. Players want to come here. Players want to be part of this. Players want to be part of that. And it's because of Matt and the culture he started. I mean, we win, but we have fun doing it, you know. And there's a blend, and players sense that around the league. It's a small fraternity. People talk, and I think, you know, in years past, we can go talk about previous free agencies. When you're not winning, you're not doing players. It's hard to get guys to come here, you know, and at fair contracts. Well, guys want to come here. Guys will take less to come here just to be part of this, because look how fun it is.
Matt, you've alluded to it several times. In a heart-to-heart with your team, how did you frame the pain?
Well, I was real with them. Number one, you got to be real, and but then you got to be a teacher. I do, and our coaches. We need to teach our players of how we're going to use this thing and turn it into a positive. And we've done that now. We've shown other examples throughout recent history of how other teams have turned negatives into positives. I've said it from day one. We're not a team that is. We're not full of pessimism. You know, we're glass half full. Let's use it to help us get better, and I promise you that's what we're going to do. And for some people, it's hard to talk about. It's not for me. We talk about it and understand it and use it. And I just want our players to understand that when you're real and you're honest with people and you treat people the right way and you try to let them learn from prior experiences, that in the end, it just makes it that much sweeter when you do finally get that trophy. And you got to realize there's some highs and lows throughout that, but that was a low last year at the end of the year. We acknowledge that, but we're not going to run away from it. I promise you that. It's going to make us stronger.
Hey, all you guys, the fan support at training camp, how important is that? Because there's not a lot of places that they'll get 10,000 wrapped around, and it's motivating to the players as they come through the gates in order to get prepared. How important is that, fan?
Yeah, without a doubt. It's absolutely amazing to see just the amount of people and the passion that you feel when you're out there. Those are some difficult days for those players now. There can be some hot days and they're tired, and you all pick them up and you're excited to hear you cheering for them. And so we want to be able to give back as much as we can and just extend a thank you for showing your support to us. So we love it. We think it's great. We appreciate it, and it's about family, and that's a great time to get all the family together and cheer everybody on.
Honestly, we could spend a lot of time up here walking down memory lane with Ted and your journeys, but the journey that matters is underway now. 2019 is about to unfold, and I know I speak for Tom. We cannot wait. I know you guys can't wait. It's going to be quite the ride. We thank you all, for how open you have been about the process and how it's been built and the stories behind it all. And we use the term organic a lot to describe Matt and Ryan. Ted's very much the same way. And I think from my perspective, it's why you guys resonate with everybody, not only your locker room, but the fans, ownership, and the city that loves this football team more than any other. So I thank you for that. And Matt, put it in perspective, what Chasing Great is. To wrap us up.
Wrap up 100 years.
Yeah. I really want to say something, but I'm excited right now. I'm peaking too soon, so we're excited. This 100-year anniversary for us, Chasing Great, is being able to carry that jersey that represents so many amazing human beings and players that came through this great city and this great organization. So for us, collectively, we understand that. We take it on. We want the challenge. Thank you to the greatest city in the world, to the best fans in the world. Thank you for supporting us. We appreciate it. It means a lot. I know everybody here has come from a lot of different states and other countries, and we just can't thank you enough. We feel the passion. We feel the love. We want to give it back, and there's only one way to do it. That's by winning, and it makes you all happy. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. Matt Nagy, Ryan Pace, Ted Phillips. We've enjoyed it. Hope you have as well. Go Bears!